What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe Show, the home of Epic Conversations, and I'm the host of Epic Conversations, 2020 Best Podcast News Award winner and 2018 Innovation Award winner given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. And I host the only online show in the world for dads and fathers. It's sponsored by Dove Men Care, and it is also co-sponsored by Dad Central, Canada's national fatherhood organization. And I am the board chair for the Global Food and Drink Initiative, a multimedia not-for-profit that showcases Blacks in the diaspora that are doing their thing in food, drink, and travel. And as always, I like to say you're blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem. We are broadcasting live here November 14th. We're getting like light rain, wet snow outside. Our new friend that we're going to be introducing to all of you today, where he is, he says it's probably snow. So I told him to keep the snow where he's at. His snow, keep it where he's at. If you don't know, we are doing Black Canada Talking, and we do this every Sunday afternoon at 5 p.m. Eastern. What we do on Black Canada Talking, it's a live online event that provides Black Canadians the opportunity to give their takes and POVs on stories that are of importance to them. And we also showcase in great Black Canadians that you may not know about. So on today's edition of Black Canada Talking, we're introducing someone new to probably many of you, Deputy Mayor of the Town of Shelburne, and he's also a Regional Councillor for the County of Dufferin here in Ontario, Steve Anderson. He is a senior practicing litigation lawyer for over the last 16 years of experience with the Toronto Transit Commission, where he received several awards for his distinguished service. He has extreme community experience that includes serving as the former Vice President of the Ontario College of Kinesiology, board member for the Community Care Access Center, citizen appointment for the City of Brampton Task Force. He serves currently as a board member for the County of Dufferin and the Town of Shelburne's Diversity and Inclusion Committee. He also serves as the director for Defence Construction Canada. Regarding his personal accomplishments, he is proud to be named by the City of Toronto, by the Toronto Star, as one of the top 50 Jamaicans in the GTA back in 2013, and is equally proud of his acknowledgement by the House of Commons for his community service. He has recently received He has recently added the title of author with his first book, Driven to Succeed, which we're going to be chatting about today. He's a strong believer in family and is a proud father of two children, Asia and Devontae. We have him here today because this man's been on tour. I had to nail him down for a few minutes. It took snow to nail him down. So let's welcome to the digital stage of Black Canada Talking for the first time and not the last time, Deputy Mayor Steve Anderson. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic, and what an introduction! Hopefully, no stress, and I hope
no. Got to give. I don't sweat the technique. Just giving you props, man.
I appreciate that. Listen, I enjoy being on your platform, and so thank you for what you're doing for our community.
Well, I appreciate. Thank you for what you've been doing, are doing, and going to be doing. We're going to highlight some of it during our journey over the next few minutes, and I'm looking forward to introducing to a wider audience that may not know, because to be honest, I did not know you till a few months ago. So I'm glad I'm educated. It's my responsibility and commitment to educate others out there about the great stuff you're doing. So we're going to talk about the book, obviously, but let's cycle back. Younger Steve, give us some of those younger Steve days, growing up, where you grew up, etc.
Wow. A trip down memory lane. Younger Steve was in Jane and Finch, trying to find myself.
I'm going to stop you right there. Just don't give what the Jane and Finch neighborhood is all about, because I have a wide audience. So you and I know Jane and Finch, but my producer who lives in Ottawa has no idea about Jane and Finch.
Yeah, well, you know what? Whether you are in Toronto, Ottawa, or around the world, you just imagine a neighborhood or a community that is mired by the reputation of drugs and gangs and violence. And every time you hear something about that community, it's really that negativity that is portrayed. And so, imagine with me for a moment as a young child growing up in that area, really trying to find yourself and not be doomed to the expectations or the lowered expectations of people who live in that community. And so that's what I found myself in. When I initially moved there, the community wasn't like that. I was a young child, bright-eyed, open for opportunities and the possibilities. after my family moved from Etobicoke to the building was called Eddystone, or is called Eddystone. And so at the time I was thinking, look, we've made it. My family moved there for a better opportunity. It was a newer building at the time. But it only took a matter of months before what seemed, very positive by way of the environment turned quite differently. I talk about the things that I witnessed in the community is nothing that any child should be witnessing as they're growing up. So that was what I had to navigate through to eventually get to where I'm at right now. But I often say to folks, first of all, never forget where you came from. Where I was I was there for a reason. And the person that I am today, I owe it a lot to, the experiences that I had living in that community.
Living in that community under some challenging circumstances at times, did you have any mentorship during that time to keep you going?
Yeah. So mentorship was certainly important. I had a really good family that really encouraged and supported me. But that family went through a traumatic experience when, my parents separated. And so despite the fact that the core, at least the majority of the core was still there, and the fact that they were still positive, my mind was now in a different place. And I think we were all trying to deal with what had happened, not to generalize, but in many, I would say, Caribbean families, the whole notion of maybe bringing in somebody, a psychologist, a psychiatrist, to maybe speak to somebody or speak to you, how are you feeling about this? How are you dealing with this? There was no family sit down discussion to say, hey, Steve, how are you feeling about it? How are you dealing with what had happened? And so we were all left to sort of deal with it on our own. And as a result of that, there were a number of bad choices, unfortunately, that I made that almost derailed, the future that I had planned for myself. So there was one challenge after another. Some of it self-imposed, I believe, because I don't make excuses for my own actions. But it was quite the challenging journey to get from there to where I'm at right now.
Who were some people that believed in you back then that kept you going?
First and foremost, despite what I was going through, I believed in myself. And I think that's important because, there's an old saying that you could bring a horse to water, but you can't force it to drink. There could be a lot of people who are surrounding you to say, hey, listen, Steve, you could do it. But if you yourself are not prepared to take those steps, you're not going anywhere. So first and foremost, I still had a belief in myself. My mother and my siblings, the friends that I ultimately surrounded myself with certainly played a significant role in me changing the trajectory of where I was going at the time. But the one person, when I started attending high school, I took a grade 11 law course, and I say in the book, I was all over the map prior to taking that grade 11 law course. I wanted to be a bus driver, real estate agent. I was whatever you could think of. It probably had crossed my mind. But, and this is a shout out to educators. That one teacher in that law course one day asked me to wait after class. And I was thinking, Dr. Vibe, I'm probably in trouble. What did I do? Right. And sure enough, this lady said to me, Steve, you know what? I've been watching, I've been observing you and what you're doing, the way you carry yourself, your grades that you've been able to attain in the class. And I think one day you'd be a really good lawyer if you stay focused. And that encouragement, I smiled and I laughed at the time that she said it, but she said it with such conviction that I believed it. And from that moment on, I knew that that's what I wanted to become.
Nice. When you bought into the idea of being a lawyer, who was the first person you told? I probably told my best friend. I would say my best friend at the time, because he was attending as well. And we were in the struggle together, trying to make something of ourselves. And so it was quite likely because, I spent quite a bit of time with him. And, that's often the case with your friends. If it's not your family, it's your friends that you spend your time with. So it was likely him that I first mentioned that, hey, listen, man, this is what my law teacher told me. And we probably chuckled together. But again, she said it with such conviction that I felt like, this was really the path for me. Is that teacher still alive today? And do you keep in touch with her?
Oh, man. You know what? It was one of the regrets, to be honest with you. When I eventually finished and I graduated law school at the University of Ottawa, and I got, I'm going to call it this landmark opportunity with the TTC, I thought about reaching out to her. I tried actually to see if I could find her, along with another teacher that really helped me when I was in elementary school. But unfortunately, I wasn't able to find either of them. And so there is that part of regret that I didn't have the opportunity to let both of them know, hey, listen, the time that you put in, the investment that you put in, actually, there's a return, there's a dividends to that investment. And, this speaks to even how I conduct myself and how maybe many of us should conduct ourselves, in a sense that when we do things, we many times are not going to know the impact of what we've done and what we said to somebody, that encouragement and where it's taken that person. But I think we just have to trust in the fact, and I presume that they did, that they had planted that seed, and it was now up to me to water it and let it see and watch it grow to fruition. And I'm glad that it did, but I'm sort of disappointed that they didn't get a chance to see the finished product.
You know what? You tried. That's the most important thing, right? The effort was put there, which is the most important thing. You mentioned graduating from Law University of Ottawa. Do you remember that day?
Oh man, my journey to law school was like none other. And when you read the book Driven to Succeed, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. It was certainly not a linear path. It wasn't that I just wrote my outside exam, found my way in the University of Ottawa, and then graduated after 3 years. Under normal circumstances, if one had taken that traditional path, graduating law school would be, a moment in your life that you would never forget. Certainly a moment from a child coming from a marginalized area, again, whatever area you may be familiar with, and accomplishing that. But the path, the journey, where I had come from, that moment was magical. To know that the seed was planted, and I was able to eventually cross the finish line and be able to be to receive my law degree. So it was a magical moment for sure.
Who was there for that event?
So my mom was there. My 2 children were there. My best friend Ian, that I first told what the teacher had told me way back in grade 11, nice. He was there. Some members of my church were present. It takes a village to raise a child and to make somebody successful. I don't believe that success is obtained by oneself. It's a number of people who have played a role. And so the many people who played a role were present at the graduation ceremony.
Nice. You've had a number of incredible professional opportunities before you became Deputy Mayor of Shelburne. Can you highlight some of them and some of the great opportunities you had, and how's that helped you become the Black great man that you are today?
Some of the opportunities, geez. Being afforded the opportunity to become the first Black lawyer ever hired at the TTC was something that I'll never forget. The skinny kid growing up in Jane Finch, taking the TTC bus every weekend to attend church services with my mom. And I talk about it in the book, I depended on these drivers to take me safely from point A to point B at that point. And here I am many years later, defending those same drivers. They're depending on me to represent them in court. And so that whole situation was surreal. But I used that platform, working for such an iconic institution like the TTC, to go back into the community, into marginalized communities, to show them what was possible. Because I believe in the importance of representation. Seeing is believing in most instances. And so I was able to use that experience to not only benefit myself by way of my own platform, but certainly benefit the community as well. So that was one thing I had an opportunity to work with as a result of, again, working as a lawyer with the TTC. I had an opportunity to partner with some politicians in the area to help curb gun violence in some of these areas. And that really turned me on to the whole idea of the political wheel and the political platform and what that could do to change people's lives. And it was that early introduction that opened my eyes to that opportunity.
Politics. You're a brave man. You're a brave Black man going into politics. Was it something, and obviously you received some mentorship before you actually got in the ring. Was it something that you went in wholeheartedly, or did you have some indecision before you got involved in the political arena?
Yeah, I think if somebody tells you that they don't have any reservations getting into something like that, they're probably lying to you. Anytime that you're putting yourself out there in the public forum to be scrutinized, to be criticized, and also be celebrated if you're doing a good job, is frightening, and it will turn a lot of people off from wanting to be a politician or something that's public facing, because most people are fearful of that. I can't tell you how many people I've spoken to along the way where I said, "Hey, listen, man, I'd encourage you to get involved," and they're like, "No, Steve, I don't want my personal business, being out there." And so certainly there was that thinking that I had to overcome in my mind in order to get to the point where, I could do this and I want to do this and take that step forward. But yeah, there was definitely times where I thought, Steve, am I doing the right thing? But I'll tell you what prevailed. What allowed the decision to prevail was the opportunity to really make a difference for my community. And sometimes we have to put aside our own personal fears and doubts and reservation because there's a bigger picture involved. There's more at stake than maybe your own personal pride and insecurities. And so once I was able to grapple with that and focus on the bigger picture and the bigger prize, I was able to move forward despite the reservations. And I want to be clear, just because I was now singular in my focus, it didn't mean that the voices of doubt and reservation still didn't creep in. They were still there, but I was able to drown them out with the singular focus of what I needed to do.
Just an aside, just for a moment. I want you to encourage, because you are in politics, be a word of encouragement to have for our Black voices out there, our Black people out there, to get involved, or at least take a look at it if they're serious about it. What are the benefits, not only for themselves, but through themselves being involved in politics?
Well, I mean, the old saying is, greatness is seldom achieved in one's comfort zone. So, don't be afraid to come out of your comfort zone and to test the limits of yourself and what you're capable of. And so whether that's politics or something else, I would encourage you, those who are listening, test the true and upper limits of yourself. You don't want to go through this life that could be very short for many of us without maximizing your performance. That's the way I would look at it. Because when you don't do that, I believe it's a disservice to yourself, it's a disservice to your family, and it's a disservice to your community who could benefit from you operating on an optimal level. So that's number one. Number two is you have to have motivation and a passion behind what you're doing, because the winds of doubt and criticism will come your way, but you have to have something that allows you to remain firm in your conviction. And so it can't be because of something that somebody else wants you to do. It has to be something that you want to do. And of course, it elevates you and your platform when you're able to accomplish your goal, especially in a position as such. And lastly, it's then what you could now do for your community by way of providing hope and inspiration to allow other racialized folks to know that this opportunity is also available to them. And so I think for those reasons, I think if you focus on that, we'll see a lot more of us decide that we're going to do that. And I do see that there are a lot more racialized folks that are getting involved in politics, and I'm happy to see that.
So with all that capitalized, tell us about the moment that you won, got that deputy mayor, because all that hard stuff. But we want to. How was that moment, and why did you decide to run for? Why'd you run? Obviously you gave us but how was that moment when you won?
So in 2017 was my first introduction to politics. I got appointed as a councillor, and I served. There was a councillor that passed away. An opportunity came out. They made an open call to the community for someone to replace that councillor that passed. And this was just before the 2018 election. So whoever was appointed was only going to serve for 10 months. And then there was the 2018 elections. Right. And so I took on the challenge, and I got appointed and became the first racialized councillor that served on the Council for Shelburne in its history. For the 10 months, I had to make sure that I hit the ground running to really establish myself and to show the rest of the community that I was worthy of replacing that very popular councillor. So when I got appointed, it was a sense of, wow, I can't believe this. I went from looking on the outside, hoping and wanting to be involved in politics, to now being in politics and now having to do something about it, right? I didn't have a lot of time to sit and say, wow, I'm the first Black person in this role. Man, Steve, you've made it. Wow, this is really good. I had to do a lot of work if I was going to have a future in politics. So the 10 months came. Thank God I was able to do a number of things that the community welcomed. And then in 2018, 10 months later, I think most people expected that, okay, Steve, you know what? You only were 10 months into politics. You're basically a political newbie. You're probably going to run for a councillor, not deputy mayor or a mayor. Of course not. But that didn't happen. And, it was a matter of principle. I won't get into the details of it, but I felt that it was the right decision to make. A number of things that happened, and I felt it was the right decision to make. I was going to put my political career on the line because I started to hear from a number of people, hey, Steve, you know what? You might be overstepping your boundaries here. Like, you just got in and now you're going for this position. You may want to take a step down and just relax for a bit. But I knew why I was doing it. This wasn't a title grab for me. Again, it was a matter of principle. And I was prepared to sacrifice it all for that principle. And thankfully, the community supported the move, supported why I did what I did and what I was offering to the community. And I got elected. And so, yes, when I was sitting at home waiting for the votes to come in, I would get phone calls from my friends. Hey, man, have you found out the news yet? And I'd be like, no, man, this is cool, man. I'll call you when it's ready, man. I'll let you know. And then I got a call from the now mayor, who was a councillor at the time, and said, hey, Steve, you know what? You won. You did it. And it was just a moment of silence. I probably fell down on the couch or onto my knees and said a quick prayer and thank God for allowing me to get to the position that I'm at. And then I think it was just a lot of screaming and crying and calling folks and telling them that I had done it.
Congratulations. Thanks for sharing that moment. I think it's important to share wins whenever they happen. So thank you so much for doing that. Well, let's get to the book. And if the producer can you just put up the image of the book for us, for the audience, for those who are watching live on the replay, if you can put the book up. How long was this in the making?
In life, expect the unexpected. That's what I'll say to you. Well, the whole journey took me. It started at actually the beginning of the pandemic. Life for many of us, if not all of us, was altered in some form or fashion. If you'd asked me a month before the pandemic, Steve, are you going to write a book out of this? And I don't have any time for that. I have other things that I'm doing that is occupying my time, and maybe that's something way down the road. But what the pandemic has shown us is that whatever plans that we had, again, like I said, was altered and turned upside down for whatever reason. And at the same time, it also presented opportunities because now we were forced to either be at home. We were restricted in many aspects of our lives. And I was actually in Brampton at my mom's place. I was in the room. The thought came to me like, Steve, if you're going to write a book, the time is now. And I swear to you, like divine intervention, I look over to my left and on the dresser, there's a pen and pad. And I grabbed it and just started writing. And so it took about almost 2 years. I just released it in October. So from the beginning of the pandemic in March or whenever it was is when I started and just released it in October. And since then, it's just been, overwhelming by way of the feedback and the support thus far.
First time author. And if our producer can take the image down, that we'll put up a little bit later, but first time author. What was that like? And was it something that we'll get to Ryan's question a little bit later about when over the top. We want to talk about the book right now, but like, what was it something that you had ever thought about before? Were you intimidated? You have stops and starts? What made it get you to the finish line? What made you start and get to the finish line this time?
Yeah. I had thought about, I've done a number of speaking engagements leading up to the pandemic in schools and you name it. And people would approach me and say, hey, Steve, your story is inspirational. Maybe one day you should write a book. And I thought about it. But like I said, I had a number of other things on the go. And so that was in the distant future until the opportunity presented itself as a result of the pandemic. Once I picked up that pen and pad, I promised myself that I had to see it to the end. Were there stops and starts? Absolutely. Was there moments in time where I thought to myself, who's going to care? It's only my story. I'm not Barack Obama. I'm not some big noticeable name or brand that's out there. So who's really going to care about my story and where I grew up and what I accomplished? And so those voices on many instances grew louder and louder And that caused on some occasions for the writing to stop, as I had to remind myself and convince myself that, you know what, no, maybe somebody can and will benefit from this. And so there was these insecurities about all of what I just said and then some. But ultimately, you know, when I would think about it, and certainly when I would speak to my family and my friends, they would remind me that, you know what, this story is important and it should be shared. And that's what allowed me to continue to get to the finish line.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you. That's a great share. Did you have a game plan of, you know, I'm going to write so much? Because some people say you should commit to do a certain amount each day, each week. Did you have that game plan? And if you did, how good were you to keep to that game plan?
Yeah, I don't think I necessarily set it up that way. You know, people will say when the inspiration, you'll hear musicians say, you know, when the moment comes, it's not something that you could force, right? And similarly, when you're writing a book, it's not something that you could force. And the material was there because it wasn't like I was writing about somebody else. I was writing about myself. And I tell you, for anybody who's thinking about writing an autobiography, it is really challenging because beyond the insecurities that I've mentioned, and that's normal under any project that you take on, especially of that magnitude, much less an autobiography, the challenges of revisiting things that happened in my life that I had buried for so long, and having those things unearthed, and deciding that, look, if this book is really going to resonate with people, I have to be authentic. It's not enough to scratch the surface and just tell people, hey, listen, you know what? I'm a successful lawyer, and look at me. I'm now the deputy mayor and a regional councillor, and I'm an author, and I'm just balling out of control. That may have just reached a few folks, but I wanted to reach a lot more and reach people where they were, to allow them to know that you could experience difficult circumstances in your life, but it's how we respond to those circumstances that will determine our future and our legacy. So that was difficult, revisiting those things, but they were important because, as I mentioned before, Dr. Vibe, I was looking at the bigger picture. And so when I went from internal to external, that again is what allowed me to continue the journey and see it through to the end. Those
things that you had to bring back up, that you, for sort of a way, you had put in a closet, so to speak. What was more difficult, going over those events again or writing about them?
Both. Yeah. I mean, who wants to think about negative things that had a traumatic impact in your life? I think we all try to bury the hatchet on those things and just move on. And we certainly don't want to be reminded of those things. And we certainly don't want other people looking at us through those lenses, because why? We've now established ourselves, right? You know, we want people to see us for who we are today, not necessarily what we were 10 and 15 years ago, because there might be some things that you may feel ashamed about, and you don't want people judging you or maybe feeling sympathetic towards you because of that. And so that was a challenge. But again, the feedback that I've received from people allows me to know and confirms that what I did was the right thing. And I say this, that my authenticity in this journey was like a key that gave and unlocked and gave people the permission to be authentic themselves. When people come to me and they say, Steve, you know what? I never shared with my spouse that I was actually an ESL. And the fact that you shared that allowed me to come to you and able to tell you that. And for me to revisit that now without the stigma and the shame, because if a person with your platform is okay in sharing that, I'm now okay in presenting that and sharing that with you. And so it's been very rewarding. And that's what happens when you're true and you're authentic and you're looking at the bigger picture, because your insecurities and your personal fears will prevent you. This is why I say that if you succumb to that, you rob yourself of maybe healing that you need. You rob the people who are around you, maybe your children or your wife, because they're not getting the best version of yourself. And then you're robbing the community who may have needed what you have to offer for them to unload and to unlock what they have inside of them. But they weren't able to do that because you decided to keep it to yourself. And so the whole experience has been really rewarding, and it's been a blessing. And it appears that other people have been blessed as well.
Well, I agree with you. I tell people, now I'm going to be honest, I haven't written a book yet, but I do conversations. So hope I get half a pass there, that you don't want to rob the world of your gifts. You don't want to leave the world saying, I kept these gifts for myself. So what you're doing in my eyes is that you're sharing your gifts with the world. So that's a huge thing. I want, and we don't want to talk about all the book, but what was a challenging moment in the journey that you wrote about that was something that you had to work through about putting in pen and paper? What was one moment during the journey that you can share with our audience?
Yeah, sure. I would say it would be the separation of my parents and the impact that it had on me, and then chronicling the bad decisions that I made as a result of that. That was a painful reminder of what I experienced, and again, something that I intentionally buried. I don't think that I ever resolved. And that was another thing that I took away from this experience, is that burying things under the surface doesn't mean that the issues are resolved. And eventually they will come back to the surface and you'll be forced to deal with them. And so it's just best that whatever you're dealing with, and to anybody out there, whether it's a separation of a family, a death of somebody, whatever it may be, it's best that we deal with these issues and come to some sort of peace so that we could move on holistically. Because again, they will come back up and you'll be forced to deal with it at some point in time. And I thought, to be honest with you, and I only learned this when I started to go back and write about this, I thought that whole experience, at least at the time, I thought maybe, wasn't going to really impact me. I was, maybe I could sort of brush it off and sort of move on. And I'm not going to make excuses. I don't want anybody to feel sorry for me. Yeah, I went through what I went through, but it is what it is now, right? But it did. It did in many ways that I didn't even think about. And so going back and revisiting that whole situation forced me to examine all of what had happened and and how it impacted me, and now what I need to do to resolve many of those issues that I left under the surface because I didn't want to deal with them.
Would you say that writing this book has been therapeutic for you?
Oh, absolutely. Not only for me, but my own family. Because when I started to share with some of my siblings, one of my brother, who's a couple of years older than me, when my parents separated, my dad, I think it was a few weeks later, for whatever reason, decided that he wanted to take the two of us to Hyde Park. And I have 7 siblings. Wow. But he decided to take the two of us to Hyde Park. And reluctantly, my mom was like, okay, go ahead. And we went and had a fantastic time. And when he dropped us off, he gave us the reassurance that, we'll see each other again and we'll continue what we just experienced. And so we went from pain and trying to close that door, and then it was reopened again. And then after that visit, we never saw him again. And so
wow,
I was forced to go through reliving that experience. Mm-hmm. But when I told my brother that I was writing the book, and when he had called, actually, it was Mother's Day, and he was calling because my mom was at my house at the time, and he was calling to wish her happy Mother's Day. And I told him, not only am I writing the book, but I was in the middle of writing the chapter about what happened to the both of us. He and I had never spoken about that experience when it happened to the both of us. Never once.
It's incredible.
Until I shared with him, and then I was able to hear from him his perspective of what that experience meant to him and how it impacted him even many years later. So when you say, was it therapeutic? Absolutely. It was not only for me, but for my family as well.
Fantastic. When you finished the book, what was that feeling?
I did it. I mean, for anybody out there who starts a journey, and as difficult as it may be, there has to be a feeling when you get to the end that you did it, whether it's a marathon, a book, a degree, a certificate, whatever it is, there has to be a sense, and there should be a sense of accomplishment that you did it. And so that was the initial feeling, is that I did it. I didn't know if at times, as we discussed, whether it was going to be possible, but I did it. And then the second was, I can't wait to share this with my mom, my children, and my family, and eventually the community.
What was that moment like, sharing it with your mother? And actually, how much of a, let me put that away from it. How much of a support was your mother while you were writing it?
I didn't really share that much with her. So I sort of kept it close to my chest to a degree. I mean, she knew I was writing it, but I didn't get into the details because,
so
I didn't get to the details, but it was a great feeling to give her the first copy. And I dedicated, anybody who reads the book will see that I talk about my mom and her influence throughout the entire book and throughout my entire journey. Without her and the example that she set, the Steve that you see today would not be possible. And I dedicate, I believe, the last chapter or the second last chapter to her. So to be able to honor her legacy, to honor the work and the sacrifices that she did, as you can see the book here in front of us, the cover of the book, that in itself was a great reward to be able to preserve her. I talk about the unsung heroes, the people who will never get the attention, will never be in the history books. And to be able to immortalize somebody who gave so much to me and our family was just an absolute blessing. So to give her the first copy, to see the smile on her face, to show her the chapter that I dedicated to her was a feeling and a memory I'll never forget.
Wow, that's fantastic. So many different questions I could ask. So let me go with this one. You've been out sharing the book, sharing your message over the last few weeks. What have people been telling you about the book? Yeah,
I say to people that it's one thing when a lot of people, take pictures and they tag me, they purchase the book, and that's exciting. Of course, as an author, you want to see people making the purchase, but even more important than the purchase is the feedback. You could go to a place because somebody recommended that you should go. Let's say it's a restaurant, but the service is bad. And so you've gone the one time, they've gotten your money, but they're never going to see you again, right? And so the important thing for me is the feedback. And the feedback has been outstanding, whether it's from youth, adults, or older individuals, about how they see themselves in the story, how it resonates with them. They appreciate the authenticity. They are recommending that our young people or our older people or people in between should be reading it. Those are the things that really encourage me to say that, again, this was the right move to make.
Nice. During this time that you've been out, can you highlight one or two special moments you've had?
Special moments regarding...
Well, just been out when you're sharing your message with the book, about promoting the book. Are there one or two special moments you could share with our audience that have really touched you?
It's when people come up and feel that the book has given them an opportunity to tap into a part of themselves that they felt they were not maybe comfortable in tapping into because maybe there was a sense of shame or not really sure how people were going to react, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. And so when people come and say, listen, hey, I thank you for being honest. I thank you for being vulnerable because that's helped me. Those are the touching moments. When I hear parents say, I have to get a copy for my child. My child needs to see this and to read this so that they know that, that things are possible despite difficult circumstances. Those are the things that get me going.
Excellent. So I'm going to give you some questions here. They're coming from the audience. So a while back, Ryan Knight asked, what is something you feel put you over the top to win deputy mayor? Because you only had 10 months.
Again, authenticity, track record. And I think that people just believed in what I had to say. Not only what I had to say, but what I had done in the 10 months that I was there. There's a difference between talk and action. Certainly when you're getting into the political realm, people hope to see and want to see, what have you done? And in the 10 short months, people were able to see that I was serious about the role and that this wasn't just about me or lining my pockets. This was really about enhancing each and every family in our community. And I think that, along with how I was projecting what I wanted to do moving forward, was the winning combination, I think, for me, and ultimately getting me to where I am right now.
Okay. Christopher has a question saying here, Steve, you are where you are because of perseverance, hard work, and dedication. If you were to do it all over again, what would be different or the same?
Yeah, hard work, perseverance, and determination is part of the story. Having faith in a praying mother and a church family that was praying and supporting me was the other side of things. I don't want anybody to think it was I just rolled up my sleeves, just studied a little bit later in the night, and that's what got me to where I am right now. It was all of which that played a role. So that's number one. What would I do differently? Nothing, I guess, because all of what happened to me has allowed me to be the person that I am now, to have the perspective that I have now, to have the story that I have now that is resonating with individuals who listen or either read it now. And if anything had changed, then what I'm presenting now would be different. And so I'm proud of where I've come from. These experiences, as tough as they were meant to be, I guess, in some degree, and having me become the person that I am. And so from that perspective, I wouldn't change anything.
How and when did you come up with the title Driven to Succeed?
It was a number of crumpled sheets of paper, that's for sure. As to what I thought it could be, should it be?
Any of them throw these crumpled pieces of paper to the ground or in the waste paper basket or against the wall?
Yeah, pretty much. It's like, man, like I thought that was good, and then you bounce it by a few folks. And here's something else I'll say is,
Sure.
I did talk to my mom about the book, but I also involved my children. It's important that your children are a part of the process of what you're doing. To the fathers and the mothers that are out there, when you are embarking on the path, the good, the bad, and the ugly, involve them in it as depending, it's all age appropriate, of course. But I wanted them to feel that they were part of the journey and that I wasn't just writing about them, especially your children. And so when I would bounce some of the titles that I had off of them, no, daddy, no. Not that one, and they would give me their reasons. And so the fact that it's out, they also have a sense of pride in the book because it's something that they participated in themselves. Right. It's something they had a role in, so they take ownership of it as well. And so, there was crumpled paper, but the main thing that kept reoccurring was the drive, despite the circumstances and the difficulties, was the drive not to give up, the drive to succeed despite the circumstances, despite the obstacles, despite the reputation of the community, despite what happened to me personally. The drive continued. It doesn't mean that I was on a launching pad from point A to point B. Again, there were setbacks, disappointments, and lessons learned. But like I said, it's what has gotten me to where I am right now and has allowed me to be the person that I am, and I'm grateful for it.
I think I know the answer to this question, but I don't like making assumptions. Who do you get the drive from, or what people have given you the drive?
When people think about work ethic, I often hear the Mamba mentality, Kobe Bryant. I hear about LeBron James or some other, Bill Gates or these guys working hours in the garage, coming up with Microsoft or whatever it is, right? Google, you name it. Fortunately for me, I didn't have to look outside of the household. My mother's work ethic was enough. A person who I would have understood to have a lot of excuses or to blame my father for the circumstances and the predicament that we all found ourselves in, and particularly her, the sacrifices that she had to make to take care of 8 children and the things that she had to set aside in order to provide the sense of normalcy in the household. I write in the book, there were times where I thought that my mother was delusional in the sense that how could she not show what has happened to all of us? And I think years later, even now, as I'm talking about this, the mental fortitude it would have taken for her, and that it did take for her, to put that aside, to be able to show us that things were going to be okay, and things were going to be somewhat normal as possible. I could only imagine what she was going through many years later that I would have taken for granted as being a young child. And so seeing a person who never made excuses, who continued to work hard and lay that foundation, that is the reason why I said I honor her in the way that I do. I even have an award that I hand out in the Jane and Finch community that I named after her. And during this time that I did the award, I was able to bring her up onto the stage, and she was able to present her award.
I saw the picture.
Yeah,
that was amazing.
To some students and stuff. And so, there wasn't a dry eye in the house when that occurred, including me. And so, again, when you have somebody, and whoever that is in your life, I always say, when you reach the mountaintop in your life, however that looks like, be sure to celebrate and honor those who have assisted you along the way. Whether your mother could speak good English or not, whether she has the best clothes or not, do not be ashamed to bring him or her onto the big stage that you now stand on and say, because of this person is why I'm here today. And so, it makes me emotional just thinking about her contribution and her continued contributions. But it was a blessing to honor in the way that I did.
How was it going back to Jane and Finch the first time post book launch? What was that feeling like?
Well, as you probably know, the Jane and Finch Mall, and we talk about surreal. I mean, I used to go to the Jane and Finch Mall to meet my mom with the metal trolley, and I'd go stand in a line at CIBC so that when she came in from work, she could go right to the teller. We take that same trolley, go to Byway and all this other places, and then walk back with the trolley right back to Jane and Eddystone. That mall, after I wrote the book, reached out to me on social media and said that they wanted to honor my journey, and they were going to post my book and my journey on their social media, and in one of a massive electronic billboard inside the mall, they were going to feature me in there as well. And so when they did that, I decided that it was the appropriate time to take my mom with me back to the Jane and Finch community. And we went back to Jane and Eddystone, where it all started. We were able to gain entry into the building, and we went right to the unit 156, and the both of us stood there and reminisced about the times that we were there. And then we made our way to the Jane and Finch Mall and to see what they had done. And when I did the post, I said that I was proud that the Jane and Finch Mall acknowledged our accomplishments, because it was our accomplishments that was being celebrated, not just mine.
Did you take pictures? Have you taken pictures of where you grew up?
Yeah, I actually posted it on my social media. And so for those who are able to go on, you'll be able to see that. And actually, it got thousands of views on whether it was LinkedIn or Instagram or whatever the case may be. But it really resonated with a lot of people of, again, honoring those who've assisted you to get to where you are right now.
Well, may I encourage you take a picture and keep those pictures and look at them once in a while.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Definitely. Well, as we start winding it down, what's next for Steve Anderson? Second book, maybe?
I mean, I don't know, man. I don't know what's next. I'm going to continue to do what I'm doing right now, which is trying to be a hope and inspiration to people who look like me and just to the community as a whole. And, let my light shine. The Bible talks about letting our light shine. And so that's what I'm committed to doing. And wherever that light takes me is where I'm prepared to go with it. And so whether that's continuing in politics, whether that's writing another book, I'm just open to the opportunity. And as young people, I say, be open to opportunities that come your way. You have to be prepared. You have to be focused. You have to work on building yourself. So when these opportunities come, you're ready to take advantage of them. So I'm just open to what's next.
Probably final conversation piece. What would the November 14th, 2021 Steve Anderson tell the young Steve Anderson that was growing up on Eddystone? Because there's probably young Steve Andersons in that area. Now, you and I know that there are young Steve Andersons in that area. What would the Steve Anderson today tell those who are in the Jane and Eddystone then and now?
So what I would first of all tell my younger self at this point is, congratulations, Steve, on staying the course and not allowing the difficulties and the obstacles from deterring you from being the Steve you are today. And so my message to the younger people in the community, in any of these communities, and obstacles and challenges are not just relegated to marginalized communities. You could be anywhere and face challenges and obstacles. But the message to anybody who may find themselves in difficult situations is stay the course. Because what my story demonstrates is greatness is around the corner if you stay focused, you stay determined, and as the young people say, you stay hungry. Don't worry about how fast people are moving in the adjacent lanes. Just picture you being on the highway of life, and there are cars in adjacent lanes to you. Some are going slow, some are just whizzing right by you. But they're getting to their destination at their time and their speed, and you will get to your destination when it's time for you to get there. So don't worry about what's happening around you, how quickly or how slow things are happening around you. You just stay focused on where you need to be, and you will get there at the appointed time, and you will know that, you will enjoy that, and you will be a blessing to those that you need to be a blessing to. So that would be my message to not only myself, but certainly to those who may find themselves in that situation.
Well, Steve, thank you so much for what you have done, what you are doing, and what you're going to be doing in the future to you and your family, especially your mother. If our producer can put up the book again, the image of the book, and also put the website, we would certainly love people to buy. There's the website address, driventosucceed.ca. All things Steve Anderson are there, so definitely you can buy the book there, find out more information of the book, and we've got the image of the book there also. Steve, thank you so much, and hopefully you and I will meet one day. I guess I'm gonna have to come up to Shelburne.
It's worth the drive.
It's worth the drive, even if there's snow or not. It's worth the drive to Shelburne. So thank you so much. Most importantly, to your family, your friends, and your loved ones, and to the people of Shelburne. Remember to give yourselves grace.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Excellent conversation. Steve Anderson, get that book, Driven to Succeed. We've given the website address. Thank you so much. That's it today for Black Canada Talking. As always, thank you so much, whether you're watching this live on the replay or listening to it on the replay. We appreciate it, and we don't take it for granted. I'm Dr. Vibe, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe Show, the home of Epic Conversations, and I'm the host of Epic Conversations, 2020 Best Podcast News Award winner, 2018 Innovation Award winner given out the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. Also, again, I host the only online show in the world for dads and fathers. It's sponsored by Dove Men Care, also co-sponsored by Dad Central, Canada's national fatherhood organization. Just want to add to that, through that collaboration, I've been able to reach out directly or indirectly to over 75,000 fathers in the world this year. One other thing, I'm the board chair for the Global Food and Drink Initiative, which is a multimedia not-for-profit that showcases Blacks in the diaspora that are doing their things in food, drink, and travel. I'd like to thank many people who watch this live and those who are going to watch it or listen to it on the replay. Thanks to Ryan Knight and also Christopher Lawrence. Thank you so much. Other places you can catch Dr. Vibe throughout the week, Monday and Friday mornings at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. Myself and Ryan Knight co-host the Morning Vibe, where we do a lot of things like this, showcase people in the Black diaspora and those who support things in the Black diaspora. And also you can catch me on Saturday evenings at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. I host and co-produce State of Things with Aisha K. Staggers and Jill D. Jones, where those two ladies drop knowledge bombs about what's going on in America, social and political wise. Like to thank BIA Media for excellent production. Next week, 5 p.m. Sunday, the 21st of November, we'll hold our bi-weekly Black Canada Talking Roundtable. So thank you so much. And one other thing, please follow, if you're comfortable, the Dr. Vibe Show on YouTube and on Facebook, where you get updated or notified when more epic conversations are happening. So live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Sometimes you have to get small to get stronger. Block assumptions, then aim bigger, aim better, aim higher, aim wider. Love, faith, and respect, and remember to give yourselves grace. God bless. Peace to you all. Keep the faith. Bye-bye, everybody.